what should we expect this offseason with Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks? And how about the Chicago Bulls? A lot of movement going on. What's the future for them? And then the last game of the NBA season is upon us. Some players are up against the 65-game limit. How is that going to affect how people vote on awards? All that and more on the weekend edition of the All-NBA Show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show powered by FanDuel. You can get started right now and use that promo code ALLNBA when you sign up. You get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. I'm here with my esteemed colleague, Marc Stein, as I always am on the weekend edition of this show. Marc, how you doing?
Adam Mares, what a season it has been, my friend.
What a season it has been.
I don't think, not the greatest in league history. I agree. Listen, I don't want to be negative. Like my goal is not to join you every weekend and talk about the ills of this league, because I know you love basketball as much as just about anybody in my life.
It's true.
I'm really not trying to bring you down, but there's just been a lot of stuff this year that we've had to talk about, monitor, and we want the game to be better, man. We want the league to thrive, right? We want this.
Yeah.
We want this to go well.
It is fitting, because I agree with you. This is not my favorite in regular season. And I think the playoffs are going to be fantastic. And there's been some real highs. There's great storylines in the NBA, but there are some things. And this weekend is one of them. We're going to talk about it. But, you know, you get all these marquee matchups to end the year. You create a schedule. You say, last game of the year, get ready for the playoffs. Let's go out with a bang. And yet, almost every single game on the slate for Sunday is one team that needs a win, one team that either needs a loss or doesn't care. And that's kind of been the story. We've talked about this a lot, so we will get into that. But before we do, and again, you're right, we love basketball here. We love the NBA, so when we complain about it, it's really like it comes from a place of love. But before we get to that, two teams that are about to take center stage, in my opinion, here as we get closer to the offseason are the Milwaukee Bucks and the Chicago Bulls. And what a weird year this has been for Giannis and the Bucks. You know, you have all the public, you know, is he asking for a trade? Is he not? Will he be moved? All this different stuff, and we've talked about it. But then you also had the shut him down, no, I don't want to be shut down controversy. So what's the latest with the Bucks? Where do we stand right now with the relationship between Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks?
Yeah, it has been 1 to 82 games of messiness. It's just been
so messy,
nonstop. You know, a week ago, last Sunday, in my usual Sunday notes, I had an item about the rising expectation in league coaching circles that Doc Rivers will not be back on the Bucks bench next season. And pretty much all week, Doc went on a media tour. Actually, first he said it at a pregame press conference in Brooklyn, but then he did interviews with Run It Back on FanDuel with the Dan Patrick Show. And,
you
know, Doc Rivers is basically acknowledging that he's not going to be back on the bench next season. That, you know, he has one season left on his contract, but they could just make him a consultant. They can find a way to work through that and ask him to do a different role. But I mean, in all these interviews, Doc Rivers has illuminated how taxing and trying this season has been for the Bucks, because the Giannis conversation really ramped up last summer, and it's never gone away. And look, Friday night, last Bucks home game, Giannis Antetokounmpo very badly wanted to play in that game alongside his brothers, Thanasis and Alex. He wanted to play in that game so there could be 3 Antetokounmpo brothers in an NBA game, and it would have been Milwaukee's home finale. So at least theoretically, it gives him the chance to play in front of that crowd one more time. The Bucks held him out, and I have to say, I think the Bucks did the right thing. I think it doesn't matter how much Giannis wants to play. He has had 4 very serious injuries this season: 2 calf strains and a adductor strain and a knee hyperextension. I'm sorry, man. Like, whether they keep him, whether they trade him, no matter where this thing goes from here. And look, let's not sugarcoat it. The league-wide expectation is that this is the summer that these parties finally separate. But no matter what happens, let's say something dramatically changes. Let's say the Bucks miraculously end up with the second pick in the draft. There is a scenario. Remember, the Bucks get the lesser of New Orleans pick and their own. New Orleans picks going to the Hawks.
Right.
So there is a scenario where the Hawks could get number 1 via the Pelicans, and the Bucks get to hang on to number 2. I mean, that it's not a great chance, but there is a mathematical possibility. So who knows? Maybe something changes. But whether it changes or it doesn't, the Bucks need Giannis to be right, however this franchise moves into the future. And so, they did the right thing to sit him. I don't think there's any question.
So what's next, though? Because you made it sound like you are feeling more likely than not that really this conversation is quieted down. It was a big conversation at the trade deadline, but obviously when that moves, there's time. But it sounds like you're hinting that you expect this to actually be a story.
Well, here's the thing, and I would say, and this is a very important caveat that to me very rarely gets brought up. The Bucks, Wes Edens gave the interview to my former ESPN teammate, Ramona Shelburne. Wes Edens, one of the Bucks' 2 co-owners, and Wes Edens said, either there's going to be a Giannis extension or he's going to be traded. That is now on the record. However, that extension cannot even be offered until October. Giannis is not extension eligible until the start of October. Are these parties really going to wait till October to figure this thing out? It's very hard to imagine. That is really hard to imagine. Because the thought is, if the Bucks put 4 years and $275 million of Mada's money on the table, how's Giannis going to say no to that? But again, that cannot happen until October. And I would say around the league, no one expects this thing to go all the way to October. So one way or the other, and I know a lot of people are sick of hearing about the Bucks and the Giannis drama, and it seems to never end, but buckle up, because yes, the playoffs are coming, and we frankly need an exciting, competitive postseason to make up for so much of the chaos and dispiriting stuff we've seen in this regular season. But Giannis talk will be a frequent accompaniment to the playoff discourse. I can promise you. You and Legs and you and Jason will be doing playoff breakdowns all week long. You're still going to be bringing me in. You're still going to be bringing me in on weekends to talk about Giannis stuff. I'm quite sure.
Well, I know you remember the Melo drama when Carmelo was leaving Denver, and it's following on the heels of LeBron's decision, which happened quickly. If you recall, the end of the season happens and there's a lead up to it, and then it gets done and it's a big story. The Melo drama felt like it lasted forever. And it really was 5 months, in the lead up to camp and then the trade deadline. And it felt like, oh my God, this is absurd. It took forever. The Giannis drama now, we're stretching into I think we're in year 3 right now of this. And what you're saying is, okay, so nothing can even happen. If that's the red line is, will you or won't you sign an extension? You would say, well, the 2 parties will just come together and say, hey, are you going to sign this extension? But Giannis has not conducted himself that way. He's been very vague publicly and by all reports privately. So do you think that changes?
And now they're at odds. That's the other thing. They've never been at odds like this before. Giannis has done, I don't know how many interviews this season where he's talked about how, he's still on the record, will generally say he doesn't want to leave Milwaukee. And he would love to finish his career there in the right circumstances. So, yeah, they're going to have to make the Bucks have to make a decision based on what Giannis tells them. Giannis, they're going to ask him, Giannis, if we put this offer on the table in October, are you signing it? They're going to have to make a judgment based on what he says.
Well, and to your point, first, you're going to have to make a decision on your coaching staff. What are you going to do with at that position? That obviously changes whether you're planning to build around Giannis or move
Yeah.
on from Giannis, you have to go into the draft. You have to go into free agency. So in my mind, like if you could lay out a time frame, if you were to guess, and I know I'm putting you in a tough spot because predicting Giannis and this thing has been impossible, but if you were to give a timeline, what would you say the timeline is for this being not resolved, but okay, we know what direction it's going?
The first thing that has to happen is the draft lottery. The draft lottery is May 10th, Mother's Day, Sunday, Mother's Day, May 10th. Let's see what pick the Bucks end up with. It's probably not going to be the number 2 pick. It's probably going to be closer to the 10 range. Now, if they get super lucky and it is a top 4 pick, that does increase the Bucks' optionality. The Bucks will be able to say, you know what? We're either going to get a young player who might excite Giannis and make him think about wanting to stay, or they would take the other tact and say, maybe we have our Giannis successor,
right?
Because we have a top 4 pick, and maybe that emboldens the Bucks to move him. But I don't think anything of significance can really happen before the lottery. And then once the lottery happens, the Bucks will start to get a better sense of their options. Now, if they're selecting 9 or 10, this is a very good draft, and you should still be able to get a good player at 9 or 10, but you're not necessarily getting an heir apparent to a 2-time MVP like Giannis Antetokounmpo, who led Milwaukee to its first championship in 50 years.
And hey, I would think he was drafted 13th, so you never know. But to your point, the likeliest outcome, yes, is that you're not getting that.
Now, on the coaching front, I have reported that Taylor Jenkins is a name that the Bucks are said to be interested in, but the Bucks won't be the only team that makes a play for Taylor Jenkins. There's also a pretty strong suspicion in coaching circles that Washington has interest in Taylor Jenkins if they decide to part ways with Brian Keefe. Now, there have also been rumbles that the Wizards feel like they should give Brian Keefe a chance to coach a team that is actually trying to win, as opposed to a team that has been outright tanking for all of Brian Keefe's 3 years on the bench. So there are so many. This coaching carousel is going to be active. There are so many things. Like I said, the playoffs rightfully should be the focus between now and June. And man, we all want, need, and deserve some compelling basketball where everybody is trying to win. We all deserve that. But there is going to be a lot to monitor off the court between now and July. It's going to be a busy spring in the NBA.
So you mentioned, possibly Washington, Milwaukee. What are people about league sources saying about the amount of head coaching jobs that'll be available? Does it feel like that'll be a big story? There'll be a lot of them, or just a handful?
Jake Fisher wrote a piece on my Substack earlier this week quoting a leading industry source in terms of the coaching market. And that source said there could be 8 to 12 changes.
Wow.
Now, I personally think 12 is way too high.
It's almost half the league.
But 6, 7, 8,
wow.
I do think that's feasible. And look, there will always be a curveball based on what happens in the playoffs. A team loses early and we see a coaching change maybe we didn't expect. I think you also have to brace for one of those. But look, I just said, there are people who believe that Washington will keep Brian Keefe. There are people in league circles who believe Sacramento will give strong consideration to retaining Doug Christie. And Sacramento would be one of those teams that you would think would be in that group of 6, 7, or 8. So it is still a tad early to really do that forecast. But, I mean, just think about this. Last summer, Phoenix and New York were the only teams that really did coaching searches, that actually brought in a bunch of candidates and made a change. The Grizzlies, the Nuggets, the Kings, the Spurs, they all elevated interim coaches. So they made coaching changes technically, but they didn't, they promoted their interim coaches. They didn't do searches. And then during the season, we only saw one coaching change. New Orleans dismissed Willie Green after a 2-10 start. They installed James Borrego as the interim coach. So my point is, it hasn't been super active on the coaching carousel over the past year. And that's why people think that it is going to be busy this spring to kind of counterbalance that.
All these coaching openings, it makes me almost surprised that Michael Malone took the North Carolina job, just because he's a veteran coach that maybe would have had some traction with this many opens.
You are not alone. I mean, Michael Malone and Taylor Jenkins were presumed to be at the front of the line for multiple openings. But let's also say North Carolina, that is a pretty storied position in the college game. And
good price tag too.
He got some Tim Legler money. It was 50 mil over 6.
Yeah.
And his daughter goes there. So Michael Malone had a lot of reasons to do it. But I mean, that was a surprise, man. I mean, you know Michael Malone better than me. We all thought he was coming back to coach in the NBA.
Yeah, it was an interesting move. Well, how about the Chicago Bulls? They're another one of these teams that could have an opening there at head coach and could go a lot of different ways. They just made some major moves with their front office. Obviously going to bring in a new front office, but they're a team to me that seems like they've just been a back burner team for their ownership group for so long. Like, happy in mediocrity. Does this to you signal the fact that they're considering making drastic changes to all of the decision makers in the organization? Does this feel like a shift in culture, identity, and purpose for the Bulls? Well, and what do you make of that situation?
The Bulls are not known as the most proactive franchise when it comes to making changes. So also a week ago in that Sunday notebook, I wrote that I was hearing this. There was going to be a big week in Chicago, and Karnisovas was in trouble. And on Monday morning, both Arturas Karnisovas and his top aide, Mark Eversley, the Bulls fired them with a week to go in the regular season. For Chicago, that is a very atypical approach to do something that decisive and that drastic. But I was actually going to ask you, there are now 2 front office openings in the league, Chicago and Dallas. Which is more attractive? Would you rather be the GM of the Mavericks, Cooper Flagg, and Patrick Dumont, who's a pretty hands-off owner? Or would you want to go work for the Reinsdorfs? I asked you, Adam Madas.
To me, this is the easiest question you'll ever ask me. It's Dallas and Cooper Flagg. He's such an unbelievable talent. Who knows? He's so young. We haven't really got to know him too well, but he seems like he is a low effort superstar, meaning I don't know that you have to he doesn't seem like a guy that's going to make a ton of demands and cause you a lot of strain to your job. And I think he's easy to build around because he's so versatile on both sides of the floor. To me, it's easily that. And then your point about Dumont is interesting because hasn't had the greatest start to his career. But part of that is because he does seem like a guy that hires people, then just trust them, maybe even too much.
Yeah,
just say, hey, you do what you want to do, which is what every GM wants.
Exactly. I mean, he did trust his previous regime way too much, and they made what is the worst trade in NBA history. But yeah, it will be very interesting to see what candidates out there want to work for the Reinsdorfs and work in Chicago, where they have a reputation for being very fiscally, what's the word I'm looking for? Showing a lot of fiscal restraint while their building is always full. I mean, even when Michael Reinsdorf spoke via Zoom to the Chicago media the day after the front office changes, he had a line to the effect of, we want to win, we want to compete, but it's got to be sustainable. Like, Bulls fans don't want to hear that.
Right.
Bulls fans want to hear, we have a full building. We've had a full building since Michael Jordan retired. Let's go for it. Let's go let's throw a huge amount of cash at Bob Myers and let's be aggressive and let's do stuff. And I don't hear a lot of optimism that's going to happen. So I think you're right. I think for everything that's happened in Dallas and all the negativity in Dallas post Luka Doncic trade, I think most executives would look at the 2 opportunities and say that the Dallas opportunity is more attractive.
The thing about sustained success in the NBA to me is it's a bit of a fugazi. You have Oklahoma City, and some of this is they just did the most unimaginably perfect job building their roster and did so at the exact time when some league decisions favored them. You get a new CBA right as you're building your team, and it kind of allows you some flexibility that other teams don't have. But how many teams are doing this? And more to the point, in the NBA right now, I actually think it's easier to fall and rise and fall and rise. And so this idea of, yeah, we want to have 10 years of success, how can you guarantee that? It's almost never going to happen. Just try to build teams, think in 2 and 3 year windows, nothing beyond that. So it's insane to think this. But my last one for you in this first segment, Mark, it sounds like the next month, because we're sitting here recording this on April 11th, May 10th is the draft. The May 10th feels like it's the big date. This is when you have to have your front offices sorted. You probably want to have your coaches sorted as best you can. And after that lottery is when a lot of your rumors will pick up. The offseason, we almost pivot to the offseason. You know, there'll be full swing of the playoffs. That's when everybody starts to say, okay, we see what the offseason looks like for us and what assets we have available. Let's start to move.
That's actually my question for the Mavericks and the Bulls. Because you just said it. There's only a month until the lottery. Can those teams really do a GM search in a month? Like the Mavericks, their plan was not to really dive into this until the regular season was over, and the Bulls just created these openings. So it's like, I don't know that you can make that decision as quick in a month. But putting that aside, look, this lottery, this is my 33rd season. This is as anticipated a lottery as we've ever seen. Now, obviously, we've had lotteries with LeBron James and Allen Iverson and Zion Williamson and John Morant.
One-off players.
But like, This is a draft where teams seem confident that even at 8, 9, 10, they're really going to be able to get a difference-making player. Obviously, DeBonta and Peterson and Boozer, they're kind of viewed as a class unto themselves, but like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe even beyond 10, you can get a really good player. At least that's the way the draft experts are looking at it. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Mother's Day, that lottery is just going to be a massive deal. And then after that lottery, it's going to generate so much discussion about what that order is going to be, 1 to 10, 1 to 12.
Well, we're going to take a break. It's funny how the NBA works. May 10th, we're going to have the lottery off season up and, not quite full swing, but ramping up, and also the playoffs. In the NBA, sometimes everything happens at once, and at other times, nothing happens. As, for example, the final weekend of the NBA season, when all of these great marquee matchups haven't been so marquee. We're going to talk about the 65-game rule and the final weekend of the NBA season on the other side. Let me tell you guys about Underdog. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, steals, and more. Get your picks right, you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. Here's what I'm going for on the final night of the NBA season. Kings at Blazers. Tamani Kamara, 14.5 points, higher. Donovan Clingan, 11.5 rebounds, higher. Devin Carter, 16.5 points, lower, even if he plays a lot of minutes. I don't know. Download the app today and use promo code ALLNBA to score $50 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code ALLNBA, Underdog. Make picks, win money. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-MY-RESET or 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. I also want to tell you guys about Quince, new partner of ours. So listen up here. Time of year always makes you want to rethink your closet. Whether you're trying to keep fewer things, just get better ones. Pieces that are well made and easy to wear all the time. That's why you got to check out Quince. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are thoughtful, and the pricing actually makes sense. What's crazy is they have this flow knit activewear, moisture wicking, anti-odor, and soft enough that you'll actually want to wear it all day. And the best part is their prices are 50 to 60% less than similar brands. How? Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality, not brand markup. Everything is designed to last and makes getting dressed easy. And I'm telling you guys, if you've never visited, you got to check it out. Quince.com/AllNBA, because they really do have a wide selection of things that you're going to find affordable and nice. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/AllNBA for free shipping and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. Go to QUINCE.com/AllNBA for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/AllNBA. All right, back here, segment 2. I'm with Marc Stein. You can read him over at the Stein Line, where he's sharing all of the league's secrets over at his great Substack, and then also at DLLS Mavericks, where he's breaking down what's going on with the Mavericks, always giving you the inside scoop. So, Mark, 65-game rule is upon us. We're in the final game, and at least one player that I have an interest in, Nikola Jokic, is up against this rule for him to be eligible for MVP, which I don't think he's going to win, but All-NBA, which I certainly think he is going to be first team. But he has to play at least 15 minutes in this last game against San Antonio. That doesn't seem to mean anything to Denver, as evidenced by the fact that they're resting every other starter besides him. And by the way, who knows? Maybe Jokic will really throw in the towel and just punt on the MVP and All-NBA awards. I doubt it.
No.
I'm just throwing it out there, Mark. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
He will play his 15 minutes. I think that's all he will play. Although I should say, Friday, I was in San Antonio Friday night. And Wemby had to play 20 minutes to satisfy 65-game requirements. He played 20 minutes. He was amazing, racked up 30 points. There were dunks. There were threes. There were blocks. There were, all manner of highlight reel plays. The Spurs were winning comfortably. They actually brought Wemby back for 6 more minutes.
I saw that.
And he got to 40 points. And I was like, what the hell are they doing?
Yeah.
And, we don't know what's going to happen later tonight. Wemby did not, you would have thought that Wemby was out for sure for this Spurs Nuggets game, but Wemby himself said he might be playing tonight. So, but it's just, look, the whole 65-game discourse, again, we said it off the top. Adam Mares and the old man Stein, we love the NBA. We love basketball. We're not here to just constantly whine and pick holes, point out holes. But I'm sorry, this season, it has just been so much tanking talk, so much angst about the injuries. Adam Silver at the Board of Governors meeting said, this 65-game thing, he made it sound like it only affects Cade Cunningham. No, it affects so many guys.
Yeah. Luka,
Ant, Cade, we went over this, I think, in last week's show. 6 of the top 10 highest paid players did not reach the 65-game threshold, and Jokic is only 1 game away from joining that list. So there is so much. This was supposed to be a milestone season. This is the NBA's 80th season, and there are so many issues to address. And I'm like, I just think, the union has made it very clear that even though they collectively bargained the 65-game rule, we haven't heard the last of this. After the playoffs, at Summer League, this is going to come up again. And there's a Board of Governors meeting at Summer League in July, and the 65-game discourse is not over.
I got to ask you to look inside your crystal ball here. Will there be a 65-game rule next season? Will it be changed? Will it be different? Will it be completely scrapped and thrown away?
It's so interesting, and I know you deserve an answer, and I just don't know that I can give it because, again, if we rewind to that Board of Governors meeting, Adam Silver pretty much shot down the idea of changing it. He said, in the league's view, the rule is working. And that's more defiance from Adam Silver than we usually get. No matter what question you throw at Adam Silver at a press conference, he's going to say, we'll talk about it. We're going to look at it. We're going to, talk to our stakeholders. He usually treats all of these things as an open, we will consider anything. But he basically shot down the idea of changing the 65-game rule. But again, today's the last day of the season. You're going to see Luka Doncic and maybe Cade Cunningham file these extraordinary circumstances grievances to get themselves eligible for All-NBA and MVP voting. And this is year 3 of the 65-game rule. We've never had these challenges before. So again, I do not think this is over as a topic. It's going to come back up in the summertime. Now, can the union, which again, the union agreed to this rule. It's got to be collectively bargained. Can the union and players be vocal enough to get Adam Silver to change his mind after just 3 years, I genuinely don't know.
Well, it does. It has made for some weird games. I mean, in the OKC Denver game the other day, which, by the way, a little bizarre. You know, OKC rests all of their key guys. Makes sense. They're the number 1 seed. They have nothing to play for. Get everybody healthy. And oh, by the way, if we let Denver win this game, Denver will be opposite us in the bracket, which I think is smart for them. But then Denver matched it by resting all of their guys and ended up picking up a win. The only guy who played was Lou Dort, and it was for this very reason. He needed to play for his, so he goes out there for 20 minutes. They did what you said the Spurs meant to do, which is he played Lou Dort 20 minutes and 27 seconds. First availability, they got him out there and said, you check the box. But now you get Denver, and I find this somewhat bizarre because Denver actually can be the 3 seed or the 4 seed. I just don't know if it makes a difference. You're going to have to play San Antonio or OKC in round 2 and the other in round 3. Houston and Minnesota kind of the same in quality. But Denver is not playing their guys other than Nikola, who's questionable. And we just have had so many of these games. But just speaking to Denver's side here, my belief is that Denver has not been healthy for the last 2 playoffs and they're prioritizing health. But it is also possible that they just prefer playing Houston and not Minnesota. What do you think?
I got to be honest. I think they want to avoid Minnesota because now, look, they've had injuries all year long. I mean,
Minnesota has.
And your guys.
And Denver
the
certainly
Nuggets
has.
have been injured from minute 1, and they still don't have Peyton Watson.
Yeah.
So is 1 game of rest really going to fix and undo all that? I mean, the good news is the Nuggets are probably as healthy as they've been all season. I really think it's more about, even though Minnesota has ended the season in a funk, the Wolves have, it's not been a good close to the regular season for the Wolves, but the Wolves have matched up with the Nuggets very well for multiple seasons now. And I think the Nuggets, given their druthers, would prefer not to see them in round 1. In round 2, they're going to have to deal with the Thunder and the Spurs. You know, those are the 2 best teams in the West. But I would also say, even after saying all that, I still see the Nuggets as a team on the very short list that can prevent a Thunder repeat. Yeah. Like I don't think it's a long list at this point.
It'd be disappointing for Denver, in my opinion, if they did. They're on an 11-game win streak. They're playing the best basketball their whole year. If they're afraid, they went 3-1 against Minnesota. If you're afraid of Minnesota, I'd find that a little bizarre. But to your point, it's entirely possible. Aaron Gordon is recovering from an injury. I thought, to be honest with you, Mark, 2 games ago, he banged knees with somebody, and I didn't realize it was a knee because he kind of grabbed for his leg, and I thought he pulled his hamstring or his calf again, 2 things he's been dealing with for over a year, and I just thought the season was over at that point. And so part of me understands him not playing. Jamal's been dealing with injuries, but the fact that they're doing it to all their guys, you might be right. They might be trying to lose this game against San Antonio, which, again, this is the NBA in 2026. You can never tell
what?
who's trying and who's not.
You also thought their season was over when they lost a game to Memphis a while back, and you crashed out.
That was the last loss they had. I was the last moment, man. I'm telling you, every other one I saw coming, it just made sense. That was the one that caught me off guard, and I thought, oh my God. I crashed out.
But look where we are now. The Nuggets are rolling. They're playing their best ball of the season, and they're still not whole.
Yeah. So here we are, some gerrymandering of the seeding here in the last day of the season. We got a lot of crazy games lined up. Marc Stein, always appreciate your insights on these, the Bucks, the Bulls, and everything going on, all the shenanigans. We appreciate you. Everybody else, hope you enjoyed the show. Back with Tim Legler on Monday. Should be a great one because we'll have the playoff brackets at least half set. Look forward to that. Hit the like button on the way out.